The best one I find is personal referrals, which is great because people refer you because they've either worked with you academically, they've seen you on this kind of forum. LinkedIn works really, really well for me. I do guest podcasts. I actually do my own podcast as well, where I invite leadership. I don't have a fixed forum for my own podcast. I just invite people, and I invite people who I know. And sometimes I invite people I've never met before and say, you've got a great.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is Jeremy Earnshaw, an executive coach, mentor, and seasoned C-suite leader with over 25 years of global boardroom experience. As the founder of Clarendon Executive Coaching and Mentoring, Jeremy helps leaders and senior leaders and aspiring executives navigate the complexities of growth strategy and purpose with tailored coaching that blends real-world insight and academic depth. From steering public companies through major IPOs and which is merger and acquisition deals, to chairing risk and audit committees, Jeremy now channels his expertise into helping others unlock potential, lead with clarity, and scale with confidence. And it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation, Rexhen.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too. And I want to know how this all got started. What inspired you to initially become a coach and then start your own coaching business?
3 things, I think, Rexhen, actually, and probably goes back to, sounds a long time ago, and it is 1991, where there was an element of a fire lit with me when I was working at the time for a very large audit and accountancy firm. But I did almost like a placement where I did some leadership and coaching work with the new intake. So I did that, and I found it really, really enjoyable working with aspirational young colleagues, bringing them into the firm and helping them through the development. So that was a fire that stayed dormant for quite some time from 1991. During my executive career, I've been fortunate to be given roles where I now look back and think I would really have valued a coach and a mentor, because for whatever reason, I managed to take on roles that were perhaps roles which needed me to grow into them quite quickly. So lots of responsibility, lots of accountability. You could probably translate that into being given roles which maybe in a different world you might never have got. So that desire to make sure that you make the most of those opportunities has stayed with me as well. And then rather later in my C-suite career, I was awarded the responsibility in an organization for developing let's call it the high performance talent within an organization. So I was the board member responsible for that at C-suite level, working again with 15 or so people who were keen to work and extend their skills. And at that point, Rexhen, I began to enjoy that work more than, let's say, the day job. So I was thinking about what I wanted to do at the latter part of my career, and I thought, I'll do something which I want to do. So putting all of those things together, coaching and mentoring, but also I wanted to do it properly, Rexhen. So I didn't just want to change my LinkedIn banner and say, I've done 25 years in C-suite, now I'm a coach. I wanted to back that up with something tangible. So I took myself back off to university to do a first qualification, and then took myself off to another university and did a master's degree purely in coaching and mentoring. Having got that academic blend of skills, what I now do is I try to blend that, as you said in the intro, with the real life scars, and some of them are scars and experience, working with the academic blend of skills as well, and become a coach and a mentor, largely in format to the aspirational, the people working in growth environments, and helping them take the most of those opportunities and making sure they don't become one of the 50% plus. This is a stat which is widely available. For those people going into a C-suite role, 50% of them are no longer in that role after 18 months. Lots of things can potentially have gone wrong. I try to help them and the organizations make sure that those roles stick.
And throughout so many years of doing this, the coaching, which part of the coaching journey would you say you find the most rewarding since you started doing it?
It's fantastic to work with an organization and an individual really at the start because you find out what makes them tick. And I mentioned those two elements of the conversation separately as well, but you need to work with them both together because the individual in a career is working within a system. And that organization sets the system. So for me in particular, the objectives of the organization and the objectives of the individual all have to be aligned. What are they trying to do together? What's the perfect outcome? Who's going to benefit most? How are they going to develop the skills that will work for an organization? The organization wants to see some real tangible benefits. So it's fantastic to work with somebody who, as an organization and an individual, sometimes they're quite reticent at the start about going into coaching. We hear the myths many times that the coaching is negative, it's correctional, it's a bit fluffy, we don't really understand it. And there is an argument that says coaching and mentoring is still quite a young industry. It still is. And therefore, the influx of people who maintain they are a coach, going back to those people who just say, I've changed my LinkedIn banner, I'm now a coach, they can do the industry quite a lot of disservice. So for me, finding out where they're trying to get to, and in actual fact, some of those conversations can be probably uncomfortable is not the right word, but they can be quite enlightening when you challenge people. What do you want to achieve? How soon do you want to achieve it? What's stopping you? All of those conversations go off into tangents and can really open up the conversations. That's actually almost more enjoyable than getting to the end of a road where somebody has said right at the start, for example, I want to become a C-suite leader, and maybe they get to be a C-suite leader, but that conversation at the start opens up the whole for them, and that's just fascinating when working with people and organizations.
Totally understand that. And when it comes to the people that you work with, if any of them is listening, how do programs work? Do you have a certain program that people go through when they're working with you? And also, is there a specific industry of executives that you typically like to work with? What is your ideal client as well?
Yeah. So if I take the first question, which is a really good one actually, how does it all, almost a question is how does it all work? And my experience so far over the number of years I've been doing this is it isn't size fits all. And that can depend on perhaps their discipline as well. So with some individuals, for example, Rexhen, you can see that what might work is almost a checklist. So you would say, on almost a box and a grid and a matrix and a scoring system, you'd say, how would you score yourself on seizing opportunities, continuous learning? For other people, and I've had this as well, people would say, that's too regimented. I just want to talk to you. I just want to almost download my thought process with you. That's how I want to express my views. So I think that part of the challenge up front, again, is working out what works best for your individual and what works best for your client. And it isn't one size fits all. And that's part of the building of the rapport, Rexhen. I take the second part of your question. Where do I see almost my perfect client? Again, I work with people who are from multiple disciplines. My personal discipline happens to be finance and M&A and fundraising, but at least 50% of my clients are not finance based, tend most of the time to work with organizations and clients, and I would call them each in their own world as being of a growth mindset. So these are people who have got a real aspiration to achieve. They are self-aware, another really important concept, but they're self-aware to know that they're not the finished article. They want to achieve and deliver for their organizations. And the organizations themselves are probably in the same kind of mindset as a corporate. So they are looking to deliver better shareholder value, working better with stakeholders. In both, they've got a set of goalposts. They have a thing that they're trying to get to. And why do I work with clients like that? Generally been my background. So over 25 years, it's largely my experience that I'm trying to help them with. And of course, it's not for me to say, this is how you do it. But what I can do is I can turn around and I can show them the scars on my back from situations that are quite similar. And I read a comment, I think the last 24 hours actually, Rexhen, that said, do you know what? Lots of business problems come down to the same thing. It's how people deal with them. And that's how I work with people. And a good concept to take into coaching for anybody thinking about getting into coaching is sometimes organizations and individuals fall into what I call a perception of perfection. They've just been promoted. They've just been given a salary rise. They have been made a part of a senior management team, and people sit back, congratulate themselves, give themselves a round of applause, and that doesn't recognize that there's a whole new avenue of challenges coming your way. And what I do generally find is with lots and lots of individuals, people think about all the great times coming up. They think of the gains of a new role. They think about the gains and the benefits of career progression. So they think about the salary, the status, the title, the more exposure. What people don't sometimes think about, Rexhen, is all the pains. So more accountability, more responsibility, less time, maybe a new stakeholder base. You might be dealing with investors or bankers or lenders for the first time. You might be dealing with regulators for the first time. You might have changed organizations, so you've got a whole internal network to manage. And they're looking at you, perhaps in that situation of being new to a board or an executive management team, and you can lose your audience within 10 minutes. So those challenges that you need to face are all about how can I respond to these challenges? How can I get myself ready for the new challenges? Because what you've done to get yourself there is now in the past. So that new challenge ahead of you is where I think coaching and mentoring can really, really help. With the right coach who's on your wavelength. In my case, I call it coaching with purpose, Rexhen. So I combine the academic with the practical. And of course, I would say this anyway, but I think it's a great position to be in. But it does recognize that those individuals have to be self-aware of what they might not be quite as good as they might be. Where's the continuous learning focus? And so if I think about my own coaching, I run my own model. So I have what's called a goal model. So it's generating self-awareness. It's looking at the opportunities and the options for change. It's looking at the actions. What are you going to do? What actions are you going to take? And then you're learning how to do that on a day-to-day basis. I think mentoring is more guidance and counsel from an experienced and trusted advisor. And I think you can both. Some people want a little bit more on the specifics, on the coaching. Other people like to work more on a mentoring point of view. The key thing is entering into the coaching and mentoring process with that recognition that there's more to achieve. So that's how I work with organizations.
And do these organizations, when it comes to their executives, do they pay for the executive coaching program, or are sometimes the executives also paying for this on their own? How does that work?
So really, actually, and allows me to answer a couple of points within that. First one, a pervasive observation is that coaching and mentoring can be expensive. In actual fact, it's probably the least expensive option of a learning and development initiative. And I'll give you an example. I did a proposal only yesterday, actually, for an organization I've been working with for some time to deliver their high performance cohort, a program over 8 months. Without going into the detail, you costed it out at around about $250 per individual per month. And compared to the salaries and the remuneration that those individuals were earning, this is almost virtually nothing. There's loose change in that. Generally, there is a sponsor, and it's generally the organization. I would have to say that if the first thing that anybody asks me, the first thing is, how much is this going to cost, Jeremy? I've already got a doubt that they are entering into coaching and mentoring potentially the wrong reasons. It's not absolute 100% rule, but if the first thing is, how much is it going to cost? I'm beginning to wonder what you want to do. I'm beginning to wonder whether it's correctional or you've misinterpreted coaching and mentoring. I think it's such a valuable learning and development initiative. I think it's moved way beyond some of the initiatives that, again, going back to your very first question, I also got disillusioned about some of the existing learning and development initiatives. And one specific example, and I thought, I'm never going to do this again. And people watching this podcast will be familiar with this kind of thing, where you take a group of people away and you give them a physical challenge, which might be building a raft or doing something similar and then doing karaoke in the evening. And therefore, that's it. That's team building done. I don't think it works like that. I think it's much more structured. I think it can be much more tailored towards the individual. And that's the real thing with coaching and mentoring, is that you can tailor it specifically. Just to answer your question again, though, who's sponsoring it? If the organization is sponsoring it, they need to see a return for that. And this goes back to another observation. Is coaching fluffy? Where can you see the return? Because you've got people like me in my old world saying, what do I get for it? So you really need to work with the organization and say, as you would with any other investment, what's going to benefit? How can I value it? And that's another part specifically of the coaching that I do about the evaluation. So working out, what do you want to see? You want to see a return on the KPIs. You want to see improvement in attraction. You want to see improvement in, for example, internal promotions. You want to see better retention. You want to see more people engaging. So can the coaching and mentoring somehow touch everybody within the organization? Can you people become internal coaches and spread and cascade the whole coaching and mentoring initiative? So if there is a cost, and of course there will be, and if the organization's paying, again, work with the organization is my mantra, to say, at what point are we going to review to make sure that you are getting what you want, that you can demonstrate to your colleagues that the investment is worth it? How are we helping the organization? How are we helping the individual? How are we going to demonstrate that financial return? And it could, there's some intangible benefits in there. But let's recognize that cash is a scarce resource and there are other learning and development initiatives. So work with people up front to do the evaluation program. I call it a periodic review against strategic success. So a pass model for me.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be visible. The help that you're like, just the amount of windows you can unlock in someone's brain that they were not aware of through coaching will be visible in the company, I think, even without seeing these, even without measuring the KPIs, depending on the problem that you're working with, right? So I feel like that's going to be very visible. I want to go back to a business question for the coaches listening. When it comes to marketing right now, where do you find your clients, or where do clients find you? What marketing channel seems to be working best for you right now?
The best one I find is personal referrals, which is great because people refer you because they've either worked with you academically, they've seen you on this kind of forum. LinkedIn works really, really well for me. I do guest podcasts. I actually do my own podcast as well, where I invite leadership. I don't have a fixed forum for my own podcast. I just invite people, and I invite people who I know. And sometimes I invite people I've never met before and say, you've got a great profile. Come and talk to me about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to talk to me about coaching or leadership. So that kind of network referral works really, really well. For example, I've had on my own podcast from the military, from academia, people who've worked in government, people who are captains of industry and corporate, and they've all got something really, really valuable to share. So I also work within my network of coaches as well. So I work together with other people who are on my academic cohorts, for example, because they may have specific elements where if I'm approached about a particular problem, or as Professor David Clutterbuck would say, coaching is about an issue or a series of issues that they want to talk about, I might not be the best person, but I probably know somebody who can really, really work that individual or an organization on that issue. So I think the being visible digitally really, really works. Visible, obviously, through your own website, personal referrals. It's a question between quality and quantity. If you're trying to work, if you're clear on your coaching and mentoring initiative, and I am, then for me going to be a lower number of clients, but maybe more regularly working with those individuals and working again with that high performance leadership talent that will stay within an organization and cascade what they have learned into potentially future clients as well.
Do you currently have a team that helps you out, or is it mostly you doing the coaching and the sales and the marketing on yourself?
I have people who help me with the marketing. So, for example, through my own website, I have a monthly newsletter. I do my own podcast, as I mentioned. I do weekly video shorts where I just decide 5 minutes before that 3 to 4 minute video short, I decide what I'm going to talk about. And it could be something as trivial as sport, but with a business angle. It could be something that happened yesterday. I try to make it relatable to wherever you are in the world. So that limits my subjects a little bit. But I think I also work, as I mentioned, with a network of associate coaches. So if you come to Clarendon and say, for example, I've got a group of females, for example, aged 50, as an example, and there's a specific issue or series of issues to address, I probably got 2 or 3 coaches who might work better with that cohort than me. Similarly, they do exactly the same with me. So I work with people from the military who I've trained academically with. I work with people who have a specific focus, for example, on coaching outdoors. I work with people who have a specific theme of resilience, and they help with that because not necessarily because of what they've done in their business life. But I work with people like that as an associate coach because, as an example, one of my associate coaches rode solo over the Atlantic. So he delivers resilience coaching. I think he's got a really, really good of spending 50 days at sea rowing solo across the Atlantic. That's a really good resilience conversation to start with. So working with a set of group of really good associate coaches that I know, I think allows you to perhaps offer a bit more than you could just on your own.
That's interesting. And I'd actually like to interview also other coaches that you might know of. So we can talk about that at the end too. But I also want to talk to you about currently with your coaching business. How do you see the future in the next 1 to 3 years? Do you have any goals that you're working towards? And I can assume yes, because you also mentioned goals when it comes to working with your clients. So I think like that's kind of your framework.
I think what I'd really want to do is do more work with the high performance, the developing talents, because I'm quite keen and I did a whole year's worth of research on this as part of my master's degree. And one of the key themes that came across is that coaching and development can be seen as too elite, in that only a certain number of people qualify for coaching and mentoring in an organization. So one of the things I tend to do within working with the leadership development team, the people who perhaps have got more to offer, one of those outputs for me has to be that they cascade what they learn. So I do workshops with them to say, this is how you can be a coach. And maybe you're not going to be a fully qualified coach, but you can at least learn some of the basics to make coaching and mentoring accessible within the whole of the organization. So can you set up coaching schemes, reverse coaching scheme, reverse mentoring schemes where you learn from the younger people as well? Can you set those schemes up that don't need me in the future? And one of the things that came across really loudly when I did my interviews as part of my master's degree research was they wanted everyone to be touched one way or the other through coaching and mentoring. And if that is quite limited, maybe it's attending some of the workshops, attending some of the presentations, because what I do with cohorts is I invite people in to speak to them. So I said today, it's important to keep momentum within that kind of program as well. I invite people in. So I'll invite one of my friends from the military to say, come and talk to me. I'll do a Q&A for 45 minutes, but everyone can attend on Zoom. Everyone can attend that conversation. So my goals are to work more with developing individuals, work more with growth clients. I think also to almost defend coaching and mentoring against the potential observation that AI can do it for you. if you plug in your desires, your awareness, your goals into ChatGPT, that you can get somebody to say, this is what you do. Maybe some of the things you can achieve through AI, but that individual conversation, that rapport still needs to be part of your overall offering. And going back to one of the other points I mentioned as well, working with an individual sometimes isn't enough because that individual works within a system. So my challenge as a coach is to make people aware at organizational level that if you're just doing individual coaching, but your structures, your systems are not set up to benefit those individuals and the way they could change, your system has to embrace change. And that's what coaching and mentoring is all about. Seizing the opportunity, taking action, creating change. The organization needs to make that structure available to be able to implement that change. So an element, I think, of my goal is to continue the education of organizations about what coaching and mentoring is delivered. And perhaps as a profession, we've not done ourselves too many favors because it's almost an element of unregulated work. And that's potentially where, as a profession, we need to tighten up. We need to say, this is what coaching and mentoring is for. We need to be equally convincing about what coaching and mentoring doesn't do. It's not therapy. It's not it's any of those areas. So we just need to make sure that we are very clear on what the relatively new learning and development initiative can offer to people and organizations.
And so also the people who are trying to get a coach or need a coach can also know these differences, because also the audience that needs coaching is not very educated on what coaching is sometimes. Sometimes it's the case that, like you said, it might feel for some people that coaching could be something that is more for only the top high executives. It's more of like a luxury for some people. So that could be a challenge, because I feel like more people need coaching than they realize. So yeah.
And it's highly individual. And that's the benefit, in that if you go to a generic learning and development initiative with a generic presentation, then for some people that can be helpful. But my experience as a coach is that you can get through an enormous amount in 1 hour, on a one-to-one basis with an individual, just talking to them with proper preparation and proper download afterwards. That 1 hour can be really, really valuable. And if you do 8 to 10 coaching sessions over a year, for example, that can be incredibly powerful. And there's so much content that you can get within that in just 1 hour sessions.
Absolutely. I also wanted to ask you a strategic question when it comes to your coaching business. Has there been any investments? Now, you did mention like you also getting in and learning the coaching to going back to university. University, or is this a specific?
Master's
Yeah.
degree at university.
Yeah, going back to university. So that is an investment. But what are other investments that you've done recently that you feel like, oh, that was actually a very good investment? It helped my business grow. And here I'm talking about return on that investment for coaches that would like to do that.
I think one thing I've learned, Rexhen, is that you're never going to win every pitch. And therefore, you have to train yourself, I think, and I'm sure other coaches and mentors would see this as well, is that you have to train yourself that every piece of work, every proposal that you do is an investment in the future. And it may not come now. And as an example, I think I mentioned I did a proposal in the last couple of days. The original communication with that organization was nearly 2 years ago. And I haven't coached any individuals there, but we've contact, we've explored where they are as an organization, we've understood what they would like to see in terms of their developing leaders, and now we're getting to the stage almost 2 years later of preparing a formal proposal. So I think there's a lot of time investment in this. Anybody can set up a website, anybody can set up a newsletter. And going back to, can I just become a coach by changing my LinkedIn heading? Interesting, I spoke to somebody in the delivery executive education sector a while ago, and they said, do you know what? There's almost an inverse association between the economy not doing very well and the amount of coaches that you see popping up. I said, just explain that for me. And he said, I get approached. So he delivers education and he has a series of tutors. I do a little bit of executive education as well. And he says, if the economy is a challenge right now, I get 20 proposals a week from people coming to work with me as a tutor or a coach. Why? Because they've maybe been let go in their organization. Maybe they're just trying to see if I'll do something else. They maybe have a little bit of spare capital and they think, I'll become a coach. I never wanted to do that. I was embarrassed by the fact that how could I become a coach and call myself a coach without doing the relative qualifications? And another thing for potential coachees and mentees is, in my opinion, most people who are a coach and a mentor are actually a member of a professional organization. So, for example, I subscribe as a member to the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. It's a worldwide body, really important. There is a code of ethics, and therefore all people in that membership organization sign up to a global code of ethics. I think it's really important to be able to do that and to demonstrate that. And also going back to university, spending the best part of 3 years working with other people, learning to be a coach, being challenged, enabling yourself to have a blend of academic skills to complement the professional skills that you may have acquired. I think that's a big investment to take. And that's what I did.
Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. And I really um, appreciate you sharing all of this with other coaches as well. What about challenges? What is a challenge right now in your coaching business that you're trying to solve for next short term? What is a challenge that you're trying to solve?
I've mentioned to a certain extent already, I think organizations are moving more and more towards team coaching. So, having been given the idea of what coaching might be, organizations sometimes tend to start with an individual. So, they may have a group of people who they see as potentially leaders in the future. They're working out how to retain and attract. But going back to that question again, if they're working in an organization and this happen where the individual is very keen to progress and learn and re-engineer their skills base, take on more accountability and responsibility. If the organization doesn't allow that, then it's going to be a closed door to the opportunity for that individual. So I think expressing what coaching and mentoring can do within a team environment is really important. Heading off the idea that you can do this by AI as well. Maybe AI can do some of it for us, but I don't think it's going to take the roles away completely. It's like what one of my clients was a very senior lawyer, and I asked him, happened to be he, the same question. Can you not just put everything into AI and get your... And the answer is, actually, you might be able to do some of that at a lower level, but you need the engagement, you need the relatability, you need the relevancy, you need to be asking the probing questions at your level as a coach and a mentor. And for me, again, it's about trying to make sure that, in my case, those individuals and, in fact, organizations seize the opportunities. And I look back on my own career and think, how much of it luck, how much of it was skill or experience, and how much could have gone wrong, and how much I would have benefited from having a really experienced coach and a mentor. And I think, again, going back to the cost of it, it can be so minimal compared to all of the other, and I would this anyway, the generic kind of coaching is so individual to the person, and it can be so tailored towards the organizations. Every engagement is bespoke, and I think it's a really powerful contribution to develop.
You would say that you are now the coach you needed in your career back when you were an executive.
I would absolutely summarize it like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it's not solving other people's problems. It's me perhaps saying I had a similar experience working with individuals, working with your CEO. We all know it sometimes can be quite difficult working with a CEO. I've never met a CEO who doesn't think they're doing it right all of the time. So there are always challenges. Who are your stakeholders? Who are your investors, your lenders, your bankers? How do you communicate? How do you create trust? How can you be challenging but be easy to work with at the same time? So all of those things, as I mentioned, Rexhen, if I was to turn around, you don't want me to take my shirt off. There's plenty of scars on my back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying, what I said. So Yeah, for many actually that I've interviewed, they are their ideal client. So they are the coach that they needed back in the day, and they are trying to solve that for other people. So thank you so much for taking the time to come into our podcast today. My final question is, what advice would you give to other coaches who are trying to scale their impact?
Be clear on what you individually as a coach are trying to achieve. And I think I've learned this as well over the last 6 or 7 years, is that you think you can coach anybody. And that's what we're set up to do. But actually, think about it in the context of a bit like a marketing proposal and a product proposal. And think about it in terms of the questions you ask yourself as a coach, but in the same way as you would as a product or a marketing. So ask yourself, what problem am I solving? Why is my solution better than what is my solution? Question 2. And why is my solution better than other people's solutions? And I think if you apply that to your own coaching and mentoring, you can get yourself tailored into what specifically you're trying to do as a coach and a mentor. And that's why, for example, I would probably not work with huge organizations, very stable organizations where people be 50, 55 years old. I'm not solving their problems. I am solving, I hope, or at least giving the facility to solve the problems of people who are on that aspirational journey where they know that the perception of perfection needs to be broken and they know they want to do more. So those 3 questions, what problem am I solving as a coach? What's my target base? What's the solution? And why is my solution better than anybody else? So ask yourself as a coach, I think, in terms of scaling, why am I the hero? Anybody can be a coach on LinkedIn, for example. So ask yourself the question, if I've got 5 seconds to make my mind up, why would I choose Jeremy? And maybe that's a real angle as to how you see yourself as a coach. What stands out about you as an individual, as a coach?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast. For anyone who wants to reach out to you or connect with you, they can go into LinkedIn, Jeremy Earnshaw. They'll be able to find your profile. And if they wanted to learn more, they can also go into the website, Clarendon. I keep saying that.
It is ClarendonCoaching.com.
Clarendoncoaching.com. Okay, cool. So ClarendonCoaching.com, they'll be able to go to the website and check that out as well. Is there any other way people could connect with you and reach out to you?
LinkedIn is a really good one. There's not too many with the same name. As you say, my website, coaching.com. I do have my own digital channel on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@ Jeremy Earnshaw, and you'll find my digital productions there as well. Those are the easiest places to find me, Red.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.